This video is about probability and genetics. So here we have a chromosome. Chromosomes are made up of DNA. And if you take a section of that DNA that codes for a protein, we call that a gene. Notice that the sister chromatid are held together by a centromere in the middle. A segment of that chromosome is called a gene. So a trait is something like hair color, dimples, whether or not your earlobes are dangling or attached. Those are different traits. Genes determine traits. You can have an allele that is a dominant form of that gene. So if we were talking about dimples, dimples is a dominant form of that trait. No dimples is the recessive form of that trait. So how do we indicate that? So on this gene, we'll indicate that by the capital letter A for dominant, because that's the trait that always shows up. So dominant traits mask recessive traits. Recessive traits are present, but they aren't always expressed. So in this case, we'll designate that with a lowercase a. So that allele is either dominant, the capital A, or the allele is the recessive lowercase a. In this case, our chromosome has both a dominant and a recessive. We call that heterozygous, one of each. The question is, which of those two forms of that trait are going to be expressed or given to the next generation? Well, we don't know. We can only figure out the probability that we'll get one as opposed to the other. So it's kind of like flipping a coin. You flip a coin, either it's heads or tails. You have this toss-up, either it's the capital letter A or it's the recessive lowercase a. So we flip the coin, and whatever the result is, well, there's a 50-50 chance that we wind up with the big A. There's a 50-50 chance that we wind up with the little a. So through the process of meiosis, that chromosome is going to divide, and into that sperm cell is either going to go the capital letter A or the lowercase letter allele. If a female has the same heterozygous combination, then there's a 50-50 chance that the egg is going to have the capital letter allele or that the egg is going to have the lowercase allele. So the question is, what is the chance? What's the probability that the baby is going to have a little a, little a? Well, it's kind of like two people flip a coin. Or the guy flips a coin to see if it's heads or tails, capital A, lowercase a. The girl flips a coin to see if it's heads or tails, capital A, lowercase a. And we see what the result is. What we're trying to figure out is calculating the probability of a certain outcome. So they flip their coins, whatever the outcomes are, we want to predict what's the probability of getting a little a, little a. Well, these are the four different combinations we can get. Now I said four, and you're like, but I only see three. All right, but let me explain why. It could be that the guy gives a big A and the girl gives a big A. It could be that the guy gives a big A, the girl gives a little a. Or that the guy gives a little a and the girl gives the big A. And the last possibility is that they both give the little a. In that case, we can figure out then what's the chances of each combination. So if the guy can give the big A or the little a, we'll put that on one side of our Punnett square. The girl with the big A, little a, we'll put that across the top of our Punnett square. And then we can match up all the possible combinations between the guy's big A and the girl's big A and little a. The guy's little a and the girl's big A and little a. So it kind of looks like this. We're just moving one of the alleles down and then matching it in the square by moving the other one over. So that each square has two of those alleles for the offspring. And in this case, you can see that it's a 1 in 4 chance that we get the combination little a, little a. Or you could say it's a 25% chance that we get the combination little a, little a. Another way to think of it is back to the coins. The guy can only have two results, head or tails, big A or little a. The girl can only have two results, head or tails, the big A, little a. So it could be that the guy flips heads, the big A, and it pairs with her little a. Or that the guy flips heads and it pairs with her heads, big A. Or it could be that the guy flips a coin and it lands on tails and it pairs with her tails, which is the trait we're looking for, 1 out of 4, or 25%. Or it could be that the guy flips tails, but the girl flips heads, and it's going to be the dominant trait showing up. As we consider all the possible combinations that the guy's chromosome can have, and all the possible combinations of alleles that the girl's chromosomes could have, it could be that the guy has two big A's. All right, it could be that the guy has a big A, little a. It could be that the guy has two little A's. The girl could have the same three possibilities. Two big A's, one of each, the heterozygous, or two homozygous recessive, the two little A's. Knowing that, we can figure out the 6 possible combinations between the two. That the guy could have big A, the girl could have big A, big A. The guy could have big, and the girl could have big, little. And you can see those 6 possible combinations here. What's more interesting, though, is knowing those 6 combinations, we can predict all of the possible crosses and all of the possible outcomes. Whether you use the letter A or the letter R or the letter T, it doesn't matter what letter you're using, and it doesn't matter what trait we're talking about. If the traits follow Mendel's principles of inheritance, there are only 6 possible questions to ask. There's only 6 possible combinations of crosses. If you have both homozygous and dominant, the big A, then all of the offspring will also have the homozygous dominant traits. If you have the big A, but there's only one of the recessive traits, then all of the offspring are going to have the physical trait, the phenotype that's dominant. They're all going to show the dominant phenotype. If one of the two parents has the big A, and the other parent has the recessive genotype, the phenotype is still going to be all dominant. They're all going to have the dominant trait. If one parent has the dominant and recessive allele, and the other one is also heterozygous, then you're going to get a 3-to-1 ratio. 3 of the offspring will show the dominant trait, 1 will show the recessive trait. In the case of one parent is heterozygous, but the other is homozygous and recessive, the little a, then the offspring are going to be 50-50. Half will show the dominant trait, half show the recessive trait. In the case that both parents have the recessive traits, they're homozygous recessive, well then all the offspring are going to be recessive. Knowing this can be super helpful when you're predicting and trying to figure out genetic crosses and predicting the probability of offspring. Notice that in most of the cases, the dominant trait shows up 100% of the time. There's only 2 cases where you don't get 100% outcome. It's either 50-50 or 75-25. And those are all the possibilities. So I hope that helps you understand a little bit about how genetic crosses work and the probability for certain outcomes.